like to call the meeting of the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railroad to order. Our first call of business will be roll call.
Chairman, we first start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We'll do that second. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now can we have the roll call, please?
Marshall McBride,
Present.
Stan Jones,
Present.
Danny Dodson,
Present.
Chairman Jones, Nick Morano could not make it today. If he breaks away from his meeting, he may show up a little later. And then, of course, as you know, Mike Santos is out of town.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Item number 2, for possible action, approval of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Can I have a motion?
Well, was there a change, Elaine, on the agenda?
Yes, there's a change to the agenda. We're going to table item number 7. We'll go ahead and, well, unless Tom shows up today, we won't have a progress report, but we'll squeeze him in if Tom Gray does appear today at the meeting. But as far as a new lease on the number 18, Chairman Jones would like to table that until such a time we have a date for the 18 to return.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve today's agenda with the change for number 7 to be tabled.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and second. Any comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those approved? Passed. Number 4, for possible action, approval of the meeting minutes for 27 June 2019.
I think we skipped over to item 3. Did we skip over item 3?
Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. I already checked it off. I better check it. I'm sorry. Back to number 3, public comment on any non-agenda item. Seeing none, we'll move on to number 4. Possible action approval of the meeting minutes.
Any question? I'll make a motion. Good. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for June 27th, 2019 as submitted.
I'll second your motion.
Motion made and second. Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes, so approved. For discussion only, financial report.
Okay, I'll start and then turn it over to Hugh. Today I did pass out a year-to-date. It is just for the month of July, since we just began the fiscal 2020 fiscal year. And so the numbers there represent pre-ticket sales, meaning tickets in the fiscal year 2020, but they are also expand into our season, and you'll also see Polar Express. So at this point in time, we've sold $109,000 in tickets, our regular season tickets, and then $63,844 in Polar Express tickets. We did start a campaign for the Polar Express, and that is definitely paying off. As far as our expenses, we had a lot of our expenses that were to clean up last year or to in the fiscal year for fiscal year 2019 and 2020. But a lot of our billing did come in for this fiscal year, things that would relate to this fiscal year. So that's why you'll see the large numbers, for example, under traditional advertising expenses or advertising expenses, period. That's why you see that large number right there. That's for the season, marketing for this coming season. And then if you have any questions regarding what I just passed out, that is just our internal finances that we watch. We are working on a budget versus actual report for you, so in the future, we will have those with us as well, those documents. Ticket sales. I did, in your packet, supply you all with a breakdown of what our new Fair Harbor system allows us to do, and that is to give you monthly or weekly reports on how many tickets we sold and even what types of tickets sold. So this is what's in your packet. That's just for your reading enjoyment and to test your math skills, because it is broken out by not just round trip, but one ways, and then also it's broken out by Toast of the Canyon, but it shows you what's selling and the numbers that are selling. So overall, we've been very busy for the past 3 weeks, and the good news is Tom Gray has agreed to provide us additional passenger cars. In order not to put too much on the 29 or to tax it, Fridays, we have 3 passenger cars, which means that we can sell like crazy. On Saturday, we get 2 passenger cars that are round trip, and then 1 that is a one-way, being that one of the passenger cars will not return from Virginia City Saturday afternoon. And then on Sunday, we have the 2 round-trip cars or 2 passenger cars. This gives us at least 70 round-trip tickets that we can sell and 70 additional one-way tickets that we can sell each week. So this is a good thing, and we're very happy for that. This Friday, in fact, that Friday, 3rd passenger car is going to pay off because we're at 170 passengers as of today, as of this morning. And then on Saturday, we're up to 96 passengers. And on Sunday, we're up to 100. So this being a Thursday, the majority of our tickets sell for Friday the week prior. But then on Saturdays and Sundays, that's where we see a large number of walk-ins, and we can max out our trains like we have been doing. It comes a lot from last-minute sales, walk-ups. It's happening this season. So these are the type of reports that I can provide the commission so they can see exactly what's selling and on what days and how we're doing each and every weekend. But this weekend's, it looks like it's going to be another big one for us.
Give us those totals again for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, so as of today, tomorrow we have 170 passengers. So our normal capacity would have been 144. So that having that extra passenger car on Friday does pay off, so we're at 170. Saturday, we're at 96. And that's 2 passenger cars with an option to sell some one-ways. So our capacity is 144. On Sunday, we're already at 100. And again, capacity available to us is 144.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you, Elaine, because I love getting numbers like this. It makes it a lot easier to understand exactly where we're at and where we're going when we have this much information. So thank you.
You're welcome. Hugh, did you have anything?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Hugh Gallagher, Story County Comptroller, and I again must apologize for the tardiness of these reports that are coming from Tyler. It is certainly not through the uneffort of my staff or myself or Story County. This agency account thing was supposed to be very, very simple, and it's turning into being not so simple. And I don't have an answer. I mean, I've called, I'm having to go to confession every single week after I have a call with Tyler because I'm taking a lot of their names in vain. And it just is not, it's not registering, I don't think, but we're very close. Next week, we're going to start reconciling the balance sheet for June 30th, and hopefully we'll get all of that stuff. And at least, at the very least, you have a comparable financial program, which we then can take a look at from July of last year all the way through June of this year. And I'm quite confident that we'll have this thing. And I am hoping that by this time next month, we'll have a proper financial statement for you. And so all of the good things that come with it, to include all the budget stuff. So that's where I am with that.
Number 6, for discussion and possible action, discuss the option of renaming the 18 cloud engine to a name more reflective of its current. For discussion and possible action, discuss the option of renaming the 18 McLeod engine to a name more reflective of its current use. Elaine?
Thank you. So this idea was not originally mine. It actually came from one of the conductors on the Virginia and Truckee Railroad, and he asked us why we did not change the name on the side of the steam engine, the number 18. That is pretty much common practice. And if that train is not running on the McLeod Railroad any longer, and I thought it was a great idea, especially when we have a traveling billboard. When the 18 does come back, we should use it. And so started researching in various history books, all the books on the railroad, books that relate to Virginia City or the railroad. And it was pretty obvious that the name that stuck out, there's a lot of trains that are named, and it's here to there. So you have the Durango Silverton. You have the, I lost it. There's numerous examples of railway or railroad entities naming their engines or even their businesses as to the route of the train that they offer. So I looked up, and the original, one of the things that really stood out was there was a working name for the Virginia and Truckee Railroad when they were first dealing with the concept, and it was going through various key members, and it was the Carson River, Virginia City. And then there was another car, or a couple of cars, one was called the Virginia, and one was called the Carson. And so the name that I would like to present to this board today is the Carson, Virginia. And the tender is where the name would be re-stenciled. It's still the 18. That's the history of our engine. The number 18 will remain the number 18. But the difference will be when it comes back out, it will be painted and it'll be stenciled just as Tom's are, but with our name that you approved today. So that's the name that that surfaced. And so I'm bringing it to the board to discuss it with all of you and to see if you have other ideas.
I don't think I'd be prepared to make a decision on it specifically today. I think it'd be, I like the idea of renaming it, but I think I'd like to get more information and get maybe more public input too on names that might be appropriate.
Yeah, I kind of like when you have a brand or you have a new campaign, you test it or tease it out there a little bit. I agree, Marshall. I think that might be something we might want to take a little more public input, maybe have a fun little contest with it. But I like the direction. I think that's probably where we end up, something along those lines. But I think could add to some favorable PR to do that. I'd like to know Mr. Gray's opinion on this too. Tom, I don't know if you had a thought on this, on naming engines and the history in and around Virginia City, and what your thoughts would be. Yep.
Well, I have no problem delaying it, but I think it's important because we kind of want to do a little marketing plan when the 18 does come back online, and I'd like to have it named at the time. Can we make it for next month's agenda? Put it on the agenda for next month? Suitable? Any public Mr.?
Yeah, Stan, again, it's above the top of the rail, so I really don't care. But our official railroad designation by the FRA, of course, is VTRW, which is distinct from Tom's, which is VTRR. So you might want to consider maybe in small print, put VTRW on it. That's our official federal designation, so.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll hold this off and have on the agenda item for next month.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good.
Just do an update, not the track contract, yeah.
We'll go to number 7 and just get an update on the number 18.
These work? Tom Gray, Virginia Truckee Railroad. Let's see here. Let's see, I looked through my notes this morning, or just now, and let's see, where are we at here with the 18? So June, July, we got a lot done. We've finished installing the steam pipes inside the smoke box. We've lapped them up, installed the petticoat, and sealed the smoke box back up. So that was a nice milestone. We had to cut the fire pan out to get the back door sheet out, so we reinstalled the fire pan, which took a couple weeks. We welded it back up and got it in there. We reinstalled the fire brick refractory in the firebox. We still have, we grouted it this week, and then we have some glazing to do on the top of it. Maybe finish that up today or tomorrow, probably, well, we'll see, maybe Monday, and then that's done. Let's see, we put all the boiler lagging on the outside of the boiler, and we've reinstalled all the metal jacketing and the boiler bands, so we can reinstall the piping. We've installed most all the piping on the locomotive. We just hung the air tanks yesterday. I painted them on Saturday to get them going. And then we every year we have to inspect the drawbar between the tender and the locomotive. And so we dye penetrated that and everything looked good. We did both the drawbar pins and inserted them, so that's up. We welded a lot of holes up in the tender. We haven't had to put any water in it yet, but we did put the bell on, I think, yesterday, and we just put the dynamo on, the steam generator. We went through it this week, real quick. Let's see here. We put on most of the cab. Luke and we had a contractor down for about 3 weeks. End of June, 1st of July, we got a lot more done. Put all the water glasses on, the injectors. We ran the air pump to see if it was still good. We actually mounted it. And then most all the steam pipes in the cap are done. We don't have any thermal cycles on that boiler. One thing that we really don't know, all this work that we've done, how good it is or how much it's going to seal up, because that boiler will expand almost an inch between cold and hot. So I don't know how they stay sealed. The 29 does the same thing, and so that whole 20 some odd foot boiler grows by 1 inch and then shrinks down, and I don't know how all that metal does it, but it does it somehow most of the time. So we're getting ready for that. Let's see what else we do. So it's looking like a locomotive. I took a picture of it. I can't, it's a big black locomotive now, so it looks a little different every day. So that's my progress report.
Comments?
It's a great report, Tom. Of course, I've been down to your shop in the past, and you showed me what's going on down there. Locomotives are an immense project. I mean, they're huge. It's not like a little Lionel train set. So we understand that it's complicated, time-consuming, heavy, hard. So
I want to make sure it works good when we're done, and I think it will. It's, we did some big major work to it, and I think the next 15-year cycle, you won't have to do that. So, 15 years from now, it should be a lot simpler. I also met with our attorney, too, to help keep the 18 contract going. Met with him today, so he'll get with Mike. And then the big thing out is the Form 4 work, the engineering work. I sent it away a long time ago, and he returned it. He returned it, but I have to do it now. So that'll take me a few days of meditation to get that done, quiet and peace. But we need to submit that to the FRA. I did see the FRA inspector on Saturday. He rode the train up from Carson, and so I kind of have them on notice as far as a steam inspection. We'll probably steam it up and work on it for a while, but then they kind of are on official notice if they have the opportunity to come up and take a look at it. So then with the Form 4, then we'll be ready to go. Give it a good test.
Any other comments? Thank you, Tom.
You bet.
Item number 8 for discussion only, discuss the option of a possible rail bike business that will utilize the underutilized Carson River Canyon Railway. Elaine?
I'm first going to pass out what I've come up with as far as a starter business plan. So that you're all familiar, the route that we're considering or proposing for this rail bike operation is it's the same route that the wine train or the Toast of the Canyon train takes. And it's East Gate to the Eureka siding down into the canyon. I spoke with Ken, and we believe it's about 2.5-mile round trip. So starting on this project, one of the things I want to draw your attention to is the matrix, which is the third page. So these are all the different operations that I've spoke with or researched. We have now traveled and ridden on 2 of the different rail bike routes, and each one of them is different. I can tell you that. So just real quickly to start with, like the rail riders cycling in Oregon, the Oregon coast, Bay City, you'll see that a lot of these rail bikes, I'm going to show you some pictures here shortly, some of them are basic, no frills. What I showed this group, it was earlier this year, was Rail Explorers. They had really fancy bikes, but those bikes were very heavy as well. And that's the group we originally started speaking with. But what I'm finding is most of these operations have no frills basic bikes, and they tend to operate more easily and with less maintenance. The time varies. For example, for rail riders, they do everything from a 2-hour, 12-mile round trip to a 1.5-hour trip, which is 10 miles. They season. They all tend to be, especially here in the West, the season mimics itself, with the exception of Rail Explorers, because they're in Las Vegas. So their season is January through April. But most of these operations in our area are mid-May through mid-October. Some run 7 days a week. Some just run on the weekends and close for a couple of days. The prices varied. Kids in some instances were a less of a price than adults. Again, no frills, just the ride. A lot of these were flat grade, with the exception of the skunk train. But there were various things that they did, such as the weight limits, age limits. Each of these operations were just a little different. Now, this Joseph Branch Rail Riders in Joseph, Oregon, and then also in a couple of other nearby locations, again, same bikes, no frills, but they did a 6-hour round trip where they actually had a layover. And they had lunch in one of the local communities and then got back on their bikes. And I thought that was something new and interesting. The skunk train, that's the latest one that we rode, and that was just last week. That was very impressive because they had the motor assist. The motor assist bikes, which is what we would end up needing. They also upgraded their seats with Kubota seats, and they explained that that was one of the items that wore down the quickest. So they invested a little bit more into their seats and just bought Kubota seats that you see on tractors. They're open 7 days a week. They were, I'm not going to say they're the most pricey because theirs were per tandem bike as opposed to per seat, but they had a bit of a grade. They did not allow small children. Age 6 was the youngest. And they also had historic commentary at the end of their route before you turned around and returned. Rail Explorers, as you all know, those were the souped-up, nice-looking bikes. They were open 7 days a week, operating 4 times a day. The most expensive, and then they offered a ride back aboard the train. Some of these are on active rail lines, others aren't. Some of them are on abandoned rail lines or ones that a train no longer operates on. Revolution Bike, that is back east, but they were at a trade show that we attended in April. Basic, no frills. Their pricing is based on tandem. They run quads. During my research, I spoke to a couple of these outfits that said that they're going to go full quads because they find that when they only have tandems available, they lose riders. So the 2 people can take a quad, but if you only have a tandem left and 4 riders show up, you lose that the possibility of at least two of those riders. So again, this is something that's happening. It's happening in the United States quite a bit, very popular in Europe. But the rail bike setup is very simple. And so going back to the type of rail bike for our operation, it is going to be a little more unique because we have a canyon. And it's got the curves in our canyon, and our decline or our grade is going to be a little more challenging. But now that we found out that they have motor assist electric or gas, that they don't really truly see a problem. When I brought up our route, I'm going to show you some pictures real quickly. I'll pass it around to everyone else.
Has a 3% grade if they're battery assisted.
This is your basic. This is a basic tandem, no frills. Here's your gauge, your monitor, and it would tell you your gears, not your speed, but your gears. This is the motor. This little motor right here.
Battery operated,
It's
right?
about the size of a shoebox. It powers one set of the pedals. And normally the main rider is, one of the brakes and the person shifting is the one operating the motor. Here are those tires, or the wheels that they spoke about, those lightweight wheels.
They're polymer, yeah.
That's right, and Skunk Train uses those. So this is a group of rail bikes at the end of the trail. It shows you everybody jumping off the bikes and resting for a little bit. This is where they did a little commentary. This is similar to what they did in Vegas, down in Boulder City area. People get off, they rest, and then either they take the bikes back or they turn the bikes around I want to show you this here. So this is the rest area. 2 people, a gal maybe weighing 120 pounds, along with another young man, pick these bikes up easily, turn them around. They're not really huge tools. But again, this is your basic no frills bike. We of course would probably want to go with like bumpers. And some had seat belts, some did not. Mainly just for the children, but that was on flat areas. So doing the research on the bikes, which is probably going to be the most difficult, require a lot of research and have to really be customized for us as a canyon run. But as far as attracting a market, we're right here in the Reno area, Tahoe, Carson City, Virginia City. We are in a tourism destination as it is. We're going to get a lot of people interested in this. Now, for the business plan, the rail bikes, I used a low number, $35 per seat. Is a price that I used mainly because we're an hour and we're a short ride. The other ones were much longer. And then also comparing ourselves to the other rail bike groups. I put in here, this is just an initial work plan, a starting point that we can modify at any point in time, but we needed to start somewhere. Why the canyon? It's because of its vistas. We don't run a train on the canyon, only twice a month. So it's definitely underutilized rail. It's scenic, and it's going to be a way of getting down into that canyon that most people would never see the canyon unless they either rode our train or took our rail bikes. The market, as I said, locals, tourists, people will come here. They do seek out the rail bike as a activity that they go around and go to different rail bike operations. There's even a rail bike group, just like trains. Competition would be other rail bike businesses throughout the western U.S., and maybe our own local attractions. But what we find with the train is that we are one of several activities that the tourists put on their agendas or their itineraries. So they're filling their itineraries out, and the train is included. This would be the same with the rail bikes. Management, we had discussed when we were throwing around the idea of leasing rail bikes or even hiring outside management. I've got to tell you, this is a simple operation. What I saw in Fort Bragg was a container, a sign, 2 people, and a porta potty. And there were 2 people that could run it, and it was a very simple operation. We would, of course, run it under the V&T Commission, and owning the bikes is really what makes sense. They're not that costly. Personnel, we'd share management, and then we would hire 3 part-time guides and 1 rail bike mechanic. Because it would be a 6-day operation, they would be at the depot and be able to run the snack bar and to sell rail bike tickets right there at the Eastgate Depot. They would also substitute as train. They could sell train tickets while they were there as well and promote the train. It could even be, they could overlap, work for both the rail bikes and the train. Startup funding, the V&T Railway Commission, we still have to determine if there are funds available at the end of this fiscal year that we can utilize. Of course, for marketing, we have the state tourism grants, and I've spoken with spoke with Chris Peterson at CVA and talked to him about helping market the rail bikes. And of course, I would talk with Denny and the different chambers. But I can see this being something everybody would want to get behind. Alternative options such as a short-term loan could be considered, but only if it's truly necessary. Before we jump into the budget or the numbers for potential expenses and income, so with the number of bikes being 10 available bikes, if we purchased 4 tandems and 8 quads and even charged $35, say if we ran at full capacity, and this would be the ultimate dream, but at full capacity, you could be looking at $30,000 a week. But for a conservative startup budget, I took down the ridership to 20 passengers or 20 riders at $35 each for $700 each ride, 4 times a day. $2,800 times 6 would be the $16,800 a week. So that's how I came up with the numbers when we're looking at revenue on the very next page. But let's start with startup costs. So 4 tandems would be $13,800, and these are roundabout figures, and I received quotes from 2 different entities that produce and can build these bikes. And then the quads are $36,500. Consultant, I put the consultant in there only if we did need somebody here to come test the trail, test the route, spend time with us. It could be a lot less, but if we needed somebody here that had that rail bike experience just to help us out in the beginning, that's why that figure is there, whether we need it or not. Will be up to the commission. Signage, furniture and fixtures, those are chairs, some of the basic things that we'd need. Maybe a station to sell tickets. I just put a round and about figure right there that we could use. Maybe some tables for out there at the or even a cover for shade out at the Eureka site. Office supplies, uniforms, license and fees, tools, and then a high rail vehicle. The reason that we put the high rail vehicle on there, and I spoke with Ken about this, was there's only one way in and out of the canyon, and that's on our track. And so if there is a need to take somebody out of the canyon, we're going to need something. And but I'll let Ken also explain why we should probably have one anyhow. But the high rail vehicle used, putting on a high rail infrastructure, put it at $35,000. So overall, it's over $100,000 to start this business. But again, these are just figures that we're throwing around, and we need to, or this is the closest I could come without doing fine tuning. But that definitely can be something that we can work on. Equipment maintenance, so operating costs. So everything from equipment maintenance, insurance, personnel, water and snacks, office supplies, printing, processing fees, rail inspections, HR expenses, retail for cost of goods sold, advertising. Those were the operating expenses outside of our facility. We already have the facility. We're already paying the electric. I can definitely throw those things on this when we develop a budget, but I was just taking operating expenses just for this operation if we were to do this. So here we have the rail bike rentals under revenue. Rail bike rentals, $35 at $20 a seat times four weeks. And that's where I came up with the figures. Of course, the first month being May would be half of a month. The last month of the season would be October, half of a month. And so you see the numbers drop there. And then rail bike merchandise. That is something that people like to buy their stuff and show that they've been on different rail bikes. I saw for myself at 2 different locations that they merchandised their rail bike business. So overall, being very conservative, looking at a 6-day work week, 4 runs, $35 per seat, starting out first year, $345,000. And then expenses, right here, general expenses just related to this, $80,438. Again, rough numbers, but it's where you start.
Any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. Overall, I believe this concept is great. I think it fits into what Carson City's already doing with the bikes. When you look at it from a fiscal standpoint, it's a big jump, I think, for us. Being we just came out of our not quite our first full year of and not really knowing where we are on our final audit, I think would be prudent if there was a way to possibly test this. Is there a possibility to maybe lease a couple of these vehicles and run them on some weekends to see what the feedback is? Do a little marketing push to kind of get a little taste of it first before we jump off the cliff. That would be my only comment.
If we do this, I would recommend we start with 4. To lease, and maybe lease 4.
Well, if you lease 4, you got to have 6 with your guides, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
But-
we have to, we
Yeah.
would have to have 6.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elaine, I think my concern on this, I like the concept, first of all, but my concern would be is maybe the price of the tickets. When you're doing a comparison to say, the Oregon coast things, we're looking at charging more money than another company that's doing distances 3 times what we're offering. So it's kind of like we're offering less and charging more. So that's what my concern would be, is that is the Canyon experience going to go ahead, and is that going to be enough to sell the people who maybe do this on a regular basis?
That's a good question, Marshall, and the answer is yes. The Oregon Coast Trail was a route. They aren't as exciting as the Canyon by any means, and their bikes do not have motor assist. It's all pedal power, and so you can see where it goes up, and that is when there's more in the package. That's why, of course, going into the Canyon, we will stop, talk about the history of the area, provide a bottle of water, snack, and then turn them around and get them back up. When we start doing motor assist, that's where the prices would go up. The others are very, very basic. But when you look at Las Vegas, we're in line and a little more affordable than Vegas area. And our experience definitely is going to be much more exciting. But Skunk Train, it was about $40 a person for that railroad. So those are the ones that are closest to us. And so I think price-wise, Las Vegas being the highest, Skunk Train being right behind them, we would be third in line. And it would take an hour for our ride just because of the curves and the fact that there would be, the advantage of having motor assist. We could even have it a little longer. What they did with us at Fort Bragg is they would stop and tell us things about what we were looking at, a little commentary. In their instance, they had trees and foliage to speak about. We have history. and great
Well,
vistas.
Las Vegas, you just run by the highway.
We just ran by the highway.
There's no scenic at all. It just runs right by the highway.
Thank you, Elaine.
Well, I really do support this. I kind of agree with Denny that maybe we ought to have a trial and schedule it weekends and do some marketing. I'm very optimistic that this will work. But still, that's a safeguard that I can live with. So what's next?
So what, we would try to find somebody that would lease us bikes, and then they would definitely have to be motor assist, so we know where we can get those. There are two options that I can speak with. I haven't found anyone that was willing to lease us their bikes. These are mainly operations that hire people to build their bikes. They're not just providers of rail bikes. But there was one gentleman in Leadville, Colorado, and he does produce the bikes. And he ships them out. I would have to, but the quads, do you want to start with tandems and see if we could just get some tandems here, not do the quads? Because quads are special order.
I think you need to make, and you definitely want the motor assist. You know, the skunk train said that they have a 3% grade and there's no problem with their electric motor working. So, but I think we definitely have to have we want that feature. As far as quads I think whatever we can get.
Okay, so what I can do is speak with some of the groups, mainly the ones that I've engaged with, and ask them about leasing a couple of theirs. But then again, you're right. We have to have our guides, and our guide, we could have one on a motor car and one on a tandem bike, and maybe that would help. But yeah, we need somebody in the front and somebody on the back end to make sure the bikes are okay.
You need at least 4.
At least 4. Yeah. Okay. Well, this was a 2020, so we wouldn't even attempt it this year. It would be for next year. And then we could just build it up, starting with a small leased group, and then if it turns out it's going gangbusters, we can.
Well, unless we can get somebody to lease it this year so we can get an idea whether we want to continue on. I would work towards that goal. Having them up here for a week or two, just
Or a
this
couple
year,
of
if we
months.
can. Pardon?
A couple of
Yeah,
months.
right.
I too like that idea, Stan, if we could just get a little test to get a feel for it. And I'd also ask Elaine if we could maybe rework the sheet a little bit. Maybe drop it down from 6 days to just weekends, maybe go down to the cost to just 6 bikes, maybe you've got 4 singles and then a couple of doubles. I think the doubles are good. I can see couples doing that as an experience together, friends and whatnot. I think that's something that we'd be good to offer, but maybe pare it down a little bit, a little more conservative approach to it. Might look a little more attractive, just kind of dipping our toe in it, so to speak, versus jumping off.
Well, to lease is going to be a whole different model. And so leasing the bikes and just doing it as a test, I can rework everything that you saw there.
At least maybe see the comparison. You know, maybe it doesn't make sense maybe it's not that expensive. We can just go ahead and buy it. But just to maybe pare it down from 12 to 6, and then maybe the 6 days, because your biggest expense is obviously personnel. Running it a full 6 days, that's a big jump for a new adventure like this. I think we'd love to see it go 6 days, but it may be just 3 days to start out with, in line with your labor that's already at the depot.
Well, and we could, we're still going to probably end up with additional labor because it is such a small group of people, and they're already maxed out at their part-time hours. And but so I think 2 additional just to use as guides, and one that can cross over and be a mechanic. And we'll start with, I'll see what we can lease. Maybe people have some tandems out there that they're not renting. The biggest thing is the motors. The motors are customized. And so it would be a discussion with a gentleman in Leadville to see what he would recommend as far as the power.
Well, I mean, perhaps they have a lease-to-own program as well, you know. If we're going to buy, if you're looking at new equipment, you know, maybe perhaps we could lease it first, and if we decide we like it, then we go through with the contract to sale. Since they're going to be brand-new equipment, we shouldn't have too much of a maintenance expense. So when you're talking about having a mechanic, I mean, it's like if you buy a brand-new car, usually you shouldn't have to have it repaired right away, so.
They still try to sell you that extra insurance, don't they?
Yeah.
But, so, yeah, I like that. Lease to own, we can check into the lease to own. Definitely, that would be the gentleman, whether, either one of the producers maybe will come, will develop a program for us. And so, just going back to the 6 bikes, quads or tandems, or a combination?
Combination, at least, yeah.
Okay, ticket price, drop it.
I don't know if we need to drop it or not. I'm just, you know, you can put the feelers out there. I think that of all the items that we've thrown out there today, we're looking at maybe, as Danny puts it, just, dipping our toe in the water to see how it's going to work. If we did 3 days and it's totally successful in the sellout, then you can expand, exponentially or as rapidly as needed to be. And the same way with purchasing more equipment. But I'm a little bit skeptical about going full blast all at once. But I think the concept is good. And so I think you're going to have to come back with a little better, not a better, but a different starting point for us, and what we can agendize it for action, because we can't take any action on it today. We can only give suggestions. But yeah, I think this is a project that might be successful going down the road, going down the track.
All right, good, okay. So next agenda, or whenever we can find out,
I think it'd be appropriate just to bring it up under your director's report unless you had an actual action item that we needed to vote on. Otherwise, just give us an update on how it's coming.
okay, sounds
If
good.
that sounds good to you, Mr. Chairman? Yep.
Yeah. Any public comment on this? Nicole?
Nicole Bard, Story County resident. I think looking at the face of this, even if you were to decrease the revenue by 30% and leave the startup costs the same, you're generating a profit at the end of, in 1 year, which from a startup standpoint, if I were an angel investor, this is gold. So I think that proceeding prudently is the right thing to do, on a smaller scale, but even, fully blown in this way, 30% reduction equals you recapture all of your startup costs, you cover your expenses, and you still come out with a profit. If she's half right on what the demand is, this is money falling out of the sky for y'all. So I think that's great. And the only other comment I have with respect to the ticket prices, it's always easier to lower a price than it is to increase it. And so I would basically suggest that you leave if you've done your research and this is what you feel is right, keep it at this. The market will tell you immediately if it's too high, and then you can drop it if you need to, but increasing it will be difficult. That's all. Thank you. I think it's a great idea. Good job.
Thank you. All right.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Jones. I'm I don't know really what I am. I'm the Gold Dust West General Manager, but I'm currently the board chairman for the CCTA. And I just I'm excited about this project, not only from a marketing standpoint. I think it's just what we're looking for in Carson City to help sell Carson City and the historical, piece of it. And that's what people, I think, come to this area for. I agree that, I understand where you want to dip your toes into it at first. I think that makes sense. And what else I would think that we need to make the project successful is a strong marketing plan. And I think this is something that the Visitors Bureau can help with. I also think it's something the lodging community can help with. It gives us something more to sell our guests when they're here in Carson City. So I think it's a great idea and a great project, and it exposes people to a different side of Carson City that they wouldn't normally see, and we're utilizing not equipment, but a track that's not used, it's underused really, and I just want to support it wholeheartedly and hope that, good luck, Elaine, and I think it's worthy again. I think if it pencils out, and looking at the numbers, the last lady said that, even if we're half wrong, we're still going to make money, and it still gives us something to market in the city. So I just want to lend our support to it. And no, I'm not related to Stan.
Thank you. Any comments for Mike? Thank you, Mike. Any other comments? Okay, let's move on to number 9 for discussion only, marketing update by our Argentum partners. Molly?
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Molly Ellery with Argentum Partners. So we will start off with just a quick recap of the last month. The big things here is that one of the things we saw in our paid social was a substantial increase month over month. So since we do have those numbers now from where we started last year, we're now measuring month over month, quarter over quarter, and then eventually we'll be able to do year over year. So we are seeing an increase in those numbers, which we're really excited about. We also ran a radio spot from June 1st to June 14th with an estimated roughly 270,000 impressions. It was targeted for our steam train, so our long haul route. And then we have some data on our website. Just want to keep that updated since that was a large investment on our half. Then just looking some updates for everybody about the steam train, so our long haul. We have reached out with several local and regional bloggers, so we're in the process right now of getting them scheduled out. The scheduling part is a little bit tricky just because we are selling out our steam trains so quickly, which we're really excited about. So working with their schedules and making sure that we're not losing customers on our end is where we're at right now. But these are some of the groups that we're working with right now to get some rides. We're also talking with them about coming back for date nights for Toast of the Canyon. And then we've invited all of them to join us for Polar Express as well, and to write about that as a family-friendly attraction throughout the region. As we move down, just wanted to provide some details about Stars and Stripes and the different initiatives there. It was a very successful little mini campaign. Moving through to Toast of the Canyon, we did a press release about the Toast of the Canyon Club, and those were the different placements that we got just from the press release itself. And then as we continue to announce new events for that, like the beer train, or if we do have any special vendors that come in, those will be additional announcements to go with the Toast of the Canyon. Currently, we're in the middle of a Christmas in July promotion for Polar Express. So what was decided upon was to offer 30% off for all of our Thursday Polar Express ticket sales, as long as those tickets were purchased by July 31st. This is only for coach tickets, not VIP. We just did an offer on Facebook. From that, we've reached over 1,500 people. And then we have a list of stories and interviews that were secured since the press release went out, and we're still getting interest from people to set up stories and trying to make it happen before July 31st. Unfortunately, we do have some other big events happening in the area right now, so they're just working with us on scheduling. And then Just other initiatives, just a quick little blurb. We did have a local influencer who rode the train with us. She's just Reno Sparks, but she rode the train with us last Friday and promoted that way. So that's just a very brief recap. I do have some print and digital creative I just want to show everybody to keep you apprised of the direction we're going, and then a little surprise at the end. So switch over. So there we go. That looks okay. So these are just examples of the creative we're putting out. This is all of our Toast of the Canyon, and this is just digital. All of these, you'll notice we mentioned the date, the time frame that we run in, location, and then there's always an option to click for tickets immediately. This was the digital we did for Stars and Stripes. We have established a theme for what our creative looks like, so we make sure to stay within that theme so that we always have that brand recognition. We're having a lot more fun with our e-blasts. So this was a Toast of the Canyon e-blast that we did and offered return riders $10 off. We noticed that when we include a menu and a list of drinks, we get a lot more engagement, so that's something additional we'll be doing to e-blasts. The Stars and Stripes. And then this is some of the print creative that we've put out. So one thing that you'll notice, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So on this was the original print creative we put out, and you'll notice that it has this fun background. Elaine and our team saw it in print, and it looked really muddied, and the ad didn't come out very well. So that was something that we immediately changed on all advertising that went out in the future, so it only ran once. So that's why online it looks really dull, but in print it performed much better. And then, to my little surprise, we received a couple of photos. These are final photos from our photo shoot. As I believe I mentioned last time, our photographer, Marcello Rastani, had over 200 gigabytes of data, and he's been working round the clock to make sure that it fits our brand, that he's getting the best edits and the best representations of our train. But we wanted to show you what the feel is going to look like. So here's just a shot of the train itself. I think something we'd like to do with this photo is animate the steam and use it to replace one of the existing photos we have on our website that's fun and animated. We have this awesome photo. It has a bunch of our reenactors. We envisioned using this for our larger print ads and even a billboard. And then this is our conductor. He was amazing, incredibly photogenic. We would use this for regular advertising as well as Polar Express. One of the things we did do is make sure we had a lot of crossover and then Polar specific. You will notice these are all character specific, but we did take family shots, special event shots, anything that we run during the season we have a photo of. They're just not edited yet, so I didn't want to show anyone a product that wasn't finalized. That is everything on our end, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Have we started our billboard yet?
We have. Yeah, we have Toast to the Canyon billboard. It's over by CVS, and it looks beautiful, and it is lit up at night. We will replace it, though, September 1st with Polar Express.
Marcia, anything? Yeah. Molly, a couple things. When Tom was talking up there about the 18, I got to thinking about something that we've found to work pretty well for us in Virginia City. A lot of times our Facebook posts or Instagram posts are do okay, but don't quite get the engagement year over year that we kind of like. Kind of gets, I don't know if our followers just kind of go, okay.
Same message.
But what we really have noticed is the Instagram and Facebook stories, the short stories, huge engagement, specifically for the events. And I was thinking with Tom, doing that, maybe something that we could send somebody up there with the 18 and kind of just to do some, hey, 18's coming along. Here's some stuff that the crew's working on. Here's the conductor getting ready to take the 29 and whatever. I mean, just some stuff that kind of shows some real life stuff out there that people can relate to and engage and maybe help get the word out about some of our, not just the 18, but also special events that are coming up. Those stories seem to work pretty well, and I probably should have brought that up at a marketing meeting, but I just came to mind just now.
No, I love that idea. We're definitely trying to integrate that more, but thinking of that and working on the 18, I think that's great. We'll definitely make time to make that happen and coordinate with Elaine and Tom.
Molly, when it comes to the social media, to help out your board with literacy up here, maybe you could maybe just briefly go over about maybe the traffic that's generated and impressions and clicks, things like that. Help us out.
Of course. So I'll pick one. So for the vintage steam train, so on our social media, so impressions, that's the number of people that were reached by one specific post. And then obviously we curate all of the posts that have to do with our long haul steam train and add together all those impressions. So these are all the people that are reached. Now they can be from different ages, demographics, all over the country and the world. We see the largest majority of our impressions coming from California and Northern Nevada, and then up into the Pacific Northwest. So those are impressions. Clicks is somebody clicked on the post, and then that's all it is. They just clicked on the post to read more, but there's a higher level of engagement that we see there. And then I'm sure and then other parts of this report, you'll see a CTR. So that's a click-through rate. So those are people who, in email specifically, they open the email, so you have an open rate. When you have a high open rate, that's fantastic. But when you have a high click-through rate, that means they click the email to go to the website, to go to ticket purchases, to whatever you're advertising. And then from there, we measure that click-through rate on our website. For example, we have special tracking on our website to say, okay, Marshall clicked through from our email, and he went and he looked at the steam train, and he went to look at tickets, but he didn't buy a ticket. So now we're going to evaluate why not, and that's a different measure of marketing that we have to make sure that you go all the way from that email to that ticket purchase. So,
Thank you, Molly. It helps out.
yes, sir.
Well, the good news is the safe will be being transported to the depot. So the B&T safe that the foundation donated last year, finally met with Dan Webster, and he is, we're going to arrange to have the safe brought over. We've determined a spot for it and a setting. But then also, so Dan Webster and the foundation have this amazing calendar with all these photos and terminology and verbiage relating to the individual locomotives, B&T Railroad locomotives, or B&T depots. And being that we were trying to find a way to celebrate the 150th and bring it in-house, and we were talking about the museum, we're going to have a photo wall with pictures of various engines put on the wall along with some verbiage, and then some of the depots. Dan is also going to bring some of his artifacts over and do the writing to explain what they're all about. And so we've got a partner in our museum now, and we're working together. And we should have it up by mid-August. And everything will be in place. We're also going to do a recognition wall for Robert Gray for his work on the B&T Railroad. So we'll be meeting with Tom and see if we can get some photos and information on his father. So that is all coming along. You heard Molly bring up the Toast of the Canyon Club. Well, that club is first time you take the Toast of the Canyon Club, it's full price, and then thereafter it's $25. We market directly to them for each and every one of our rides. And then there will be a beer train on August 10th, and it's been arranged, and it's Shoestring Brewery and Reds, $3.95 are teaming together to sponsor that train. So that will be some heavy marketing, and people have been waiting for this beer train. We're starting to get good response for August 10th. Nope, that's it.
Thanks, Dan. A couple things. Actually, just got a chance to compile some of the survey information that we took up on the Overman embankment. And when we went through that reconstruction effort back in 2014, we reestablished some rebar monitoring pins. And this last spring, we also added some additional ones. In other words, how much is that embankment settling? And about at the middle of the embankment, since we last made a measurement, which was 2014, it's settled about 6 inches. More in the middle of it because it's higher and there's more weight on the existing ground than in the other locations. Nothing out of the ordinary. This is basically what we expected. I think if you look back at the original geotechnical report, it said that over time that embankment's going to settle basically a couple feet is what it amounts to. So I think most of that settlement happened in 2017 when it was real wet. We haven't had any real major problems like we did at the top end of that embankment there back in the day where we had to do some reconstructive effort there. So anyway, the bottom line is prudent for us to keep a track. And so basically every year, every couple of years, we'll send surveyors back out there to say, okay, how much is this peg settled in the ground? So that's a little bit of effort. Again, it's probably more, not very exciting from a marketing standpoint, if you will, but just one of the things we're trying to do. You may notice there's a little bit of work going on the US 50 bridge. We're doing some painting on basically the top and the inside of the girder and some of the connection structures. Nothing really major that's gone wrong, but things have deteriorated a little bit and need some repainting. It's been 10 years since some of that work has been done. Some of those items will be, no doubt, on NDOT's, what do you want to say, exception list, fix-it list, if you will. There's no real major exceptions on the inspection that they did about a month or 2 months ago, I think it was. So we're going to be ahead on that. We're not trying to paint the outside of the bridge. There's a couple of spots where there's been some paint peeled off, and we'll probably have to arrange that. Hopefully, the next time Carson City gets up with their lift truck and provides traffic control, we can touch up those. All the work that we're doing now is from the track, if you will. That'll probably be completed next week. We're working with Tom to schedule up some time to dump some ballast, if you will, and that'll happen here pretty soon. Basically, we need to get a work train squared away, and Tom's all on board to help us out on that. We've got some ballast stockpiled in Gold Hill, and I'm not sure if the delivery's been made up to the stockpile at the North Pole location. The idea was to try to utilize that maybe later on in the fall. But mainly we want to put most of that ballast wants to go up on the Overman because we do need the embankment settled, and so we need to keep raising that track up a little bit. So we need rock to do that. That's really about the only other thing. We thought we might, talking with Tom, we thought we might have the Sperry car this week, but they didn't make it up here. That's the ultrasonic rail inspection car. They're down in San Francisco right now and working on a job down there, I guess. I'm not sure if it's for BART or whatnot, but they'll probably show up at the last minute and say, okay, we're here. Can we start working in an hour? Hopefully then Tom and I can panic. So, but we'll get it done. That's about it. Nothing really else unless you folks have any questions. So,
Any questions, Ken? Thank you. Number 12, Mike, your attorney's report.
Thanks, it's been a little bit, oh, sorry. It's been a bit busier this past month. We received the notification from the Legislative Council Bureau to get the report on the license plates prepared and submitted. We have to do that every year, and I know Elaine's gotten the same email, and I forwarded mine on to her just so that it would be taken care of. Ken also sent some good information about an emergency plan, and that's an issue that we're going to have to address one of these days. So it was quite helpful. It was something that came up in 2010. So we should probably take care of that at one of these meetings. And then there were two meetings that I had with Stan and Elaine about various matters regarding the 18. the lease and the emergency plan. And as Tom indicated, he was at one of those meetings last week to discuss the 18 and the lease. We'll probably have the lease agreement ready for the next meeting, although I can't say for sure. I sent the old lease, which is now expired, to Tom, and he's indicated that he was going to meet with his counsel today, and we'll try and get that worked out and submitted to you for an action item on the next agenda.
Are you going to send that to all the board members?
I can.
I think you should.
You mean the revised one?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
The new one or the old one? You want to see the old one?
I already sent the old one to the
Oh,
board
okay.
members.
Because I know I sent it to Elaine, and I thought I sent it to you, Stan.
I have it, but I mean for the rest of the board.
Yes, I would definitely do that. As soon as I hear from Tom's side of it, then we'll start working on it, putting it together. That's pretty much it for out of the ordinary stuff. I mean, reviewing agendas and minutes and whatnot is part of it.
So this emergency plan, what is it? What does that entail?
You want to address that?
Sure. One of the things that we were required to do when we did the supplemental environmental assessment in 2010 was to develop an emergency plan for what happens if something goes wrong. And what we did, the consultants, which was myself and my team at that time, we contracted with Jim Powell with All Clear Fire Training. And Jim, of course, is retired battalion chief from Carson City and runs All Clear Fire Training and is very knowledgeable. So he prepared a draft plan for basically what happens if there's an emergency, if there's someone hurt on the railroad, how can we access to get that person on, how can emergency vehicles get in there? And one of the big things, of course, it was targeting the Carson River Canyon, which were only built out a portion of into that canyon, just barely even got in there because of the lack of access. And what it was just, you might want to consider putting this in your emergency plan. Now, I know that Tom has got a plan, if you will, that's in place for the rail operations itself. I don't know if we need to get into the details of that, but he's got some procedures squared away as, who do we call? When do we call? How do we get a helicopter into this location? But this draft plan that was prepared back in 2010 was basically to get us, I think 2009 actually is when the plan was done, just to get us started into thinking about what we're wanting to do on a long-term basis. And one of the items that we did talk about in that plan was, and again, particularly targeting the canyon, was to have a high rail vehicle. Right now, Gabe Williman, of course, has one or two of them, but they're more for maintenance. But to have a high rail vehicle so that we could coordinate with whether it be the police, the sheriff's office, or one of the fire departments, to be able to get down and access into that canyon, whether it be for fire suppression or trying to get someone that's hurt out there. Particularly since we're putting tracks on the old track bed, which you can't run vehicles on anymore. So that was one of the things that Elaine put in. Do we need to maybe get a high rail vehicle that would be available on a short notice call besides serving the rail bikes?
Now, do the fire departments like Virginia City and Carson have a copy of this plan?
I believe it was distributed to everybody, and I know that at the time Pat Whitten had reviewed it back with Story County and thought it was a good starting point, and they'd looked at it with the fire department with Chief Haynes. Haynes, I believe I looked at it, and of course him and Jim are good friends, so they sort of collaborated on some items on that. And I can provide copies of that draft report of that. Again, it was recommendations.
Right.
Consider this, guys, going forward.
Well, we've had a couple of fire chiefs in the last 3 years. I just would feel better if we knew Carson City had a copy.
Okay. Again, it's not something that's been implemented. It's a recommendation
I
to the
understand.
board to consider adopting an emergency plan. What happens if?
And Commissioner Jones, also Molly Ellery and Mike Draper with Argentum had asked me about a plan. We need we should probably review it and also have a plan for media. in case something happens, we need to have, our public relations contractors should be, shoulder to shoulder with us if something were to occur. So we do need to
You
update
get
that
with
plan.
Mike on that.
One of the things, and Elaine's aware of this, and Tom's very much aware of it, is the fact that if any railroad has an accident that involves an injury or an evacuation of passenger cars, if you're a passenger railroad, or I think if there's damage in excess of 25,000, is that right, Tom? Yeah, that there's an 800 number to the FRA that you're supposed to call immediately prior to filling out the report, which is mandatory to be filled out, preliminary report and then more detailed report. Knock on wood, we have not had to call that number yet. But that's one little component of that emergency plan. But Elaine's aware of that requirement, and everybody else, I think, is too. And I've got it on speed dial, but thank goodness I've never had to use it.
Any other comments?
Do you
Thank-
want to see the recommendations from 2009, 2010?
I'll send that out.
Yeah.
Have you sent that?
No, I'll get that distributed.
I would observe that according to the correspondence back then, it was circulated to everybody, all the commissioners, Carson City, sheriffs, Joe Curtis. I mean, it went everywhere at the time.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, item 13, our next meeting will be the 29th of August, at 1 o'clock here in the community center. And our last agenda item is commissioner comments. Denny?
No, Mr. Chairman, no, I actually don't have anything other than a possibility I may not be here for the 29th, Elaine, just a vacation plan, so, but to be determined, but I could show up. That's all I have.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Marshall on getting the Story County to buy the depot. I know it's not totally a done deal, but I know it was a long effort in being done, and I think it's a great accomplishment, and it's going to be an added feature to a lot of things, Story County and the railroad and everything. And thank you for doing that. Mike Santos and I visited Tom Gray's shop a couple of weeks ago. Mike had never been up, and we had an opportunity to see what they were doing on the 18 and give Mike an opportunity to see the shop. I just want to thank Elaine and all the staff for all the hard work we've done. One thing, the garage doors will be in the building next Wednesday, and that will complete that project. So thanks you, Marshall, for helping us get the money, and Elaine for carrying through. Any other public comments? Tom?
Back up a little bit on that emergency response plan. I gave him, when Mike was up, we had one sitting on the train car, so I gave him what we've been using for a decade now. And I give that to all three of the regions, Lyon County, I meet with them. Carson City, I haven't met with them, but I give them a plan, and Story County, and I update it every year. It's kind of what to do if we're all dead and the first responders show up, how to turn stuff off. It's got how to deal with the media. It's got, all the stuff in it, written from both a fireman, a volunteer fireman, and EMT's perspective and a train operator's perspective. I think, and it works pretty good. Yeah.
Thank you. I just think it's very important that everybody.
Before I can give my new one.
I don't recall seeing it. I was aware of it. But, and I may have lost it, but if you got one, then we'll send both of them on everybody. Thanks.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're out of here. Thank you very much. Thank you for prompting me, Denny.
No, it's all right.
Catch on.
I just leave it.